Okay. Now, one time when I was locked up in Hagerstown, like the craziest freaking story, I would say, this guy came into our unit and he was telling everybody he was locked up for robbery or some shit like that. And come to find out, he was a child molester. So what they did was they took a freaking in Hagerstown we have coffee pots to warm up our water for coffee in the morning. Certain people would be able to get coffee pots on commissary or whatever, or one of your friends might have a coffee pot. So they took like they filled the whole coffee pot up with honey and boiled it till it was like a freaking lava. And somebody walked past and poured the coffee pot on his head, and all his hair, everything on his whole face. It was like off like Creep Show or one of them shows like that. Like you could literally see his skin, every last piece of his skin on his head running down his face like water. Like all his ears, everything just coming off his face like water. And like one thing I never really discussed the last time was like my addiction. Like at one point in time, I was really, really addicted to PCP when I was probably like I would say in around I would say 88, 89, like really, really hard on what? What is it? So basically it was like at first I didn't get, cause I used to box, so I didn't get high at all. Like when I was boxing, I didn't get high at all. Like I was really like a freaking like workout nut, you know. And after I got shot, I had to stop. I had to stop boxing because I got a bullet. I still to this day got a bullet in my head, and I had to stop boxing. So once I stopped boxing, they had put me on some sort of pain medication because I would have like migraine headaches and like all together I got like 13 bullets in my body. Right now I got like 13 bullets in my body. So they would try to get me on some type of pain medication, but I didn't like that shit because it made you like all like nodding and drowsy and tired. And I even though I wasn't boxing anymore, I just didn't like being on the pain medication. But at that time, PCP in my neighborhood was a popular drug. So when I smoked the PCP, it would not only take away the pain, but like it would just give you like a euphoric feeling as to where you were like invincible. And let's just say like at that time I was kind of driven on trying to find out who shot me, you know, and just like that type of mentality. So the PCP didn't really help because, like I said, it gave you a feeling of invincibility. Like even toward the I remember one time we called the police, not in my neighborhood, but my cousin used to live probably like 3 or 4 miles down the street from where we lived at. But we used to always, you know, commute back and forth to each other. So one particular time we were smoking some PCP, and we decided to call the police and say that we heard gunshots in the neighborhood just to lure Prince George's County police officers into, it was like a one-way, like it was no way, it was a one-way in and one-way out type of situation. So we could see them when they came in, and we were armed, like heavily armed with like military-style weapons back in freaking 80, like I said, 87, 88. And just for no reason. This is what we used to do for fun type shit. And when the police came down, we started shooting at the police. We literally started shooting at Prince George's County police officers. And they back up instead of like even firing at us or, you know, anything like that. They back all the way back up the hill. But I can say after about 15 minutes, they called in for reinforcements. And they had like literally a sheriff's office, a SWAT team, but we got back in the house and changed clothes and all that. And then we were standing out there with the police waiting, like watching them look for us. Like literally, we're sitting out there watching them look for us. But I'm just saying that's the type of thing that the PCP used to make us do. And you can imagine, like, you got like, I would say anywhere between 8 and 10 young men high off PCP, and like I would say it was like renegade type shit, man. Like anybody, like once we smoked, I remember. I think I might have told you the story the last time, but I remember one time I smoked. Like I had just now, I did tell you this, but just this, like the PCP used to literally take your brain, like the way people used to take acid way back in the day. That's how PCP used to affect us. And like when you have that feeling of invincibility off the PCP, and you got guns and you got like a crew of people who just really didn't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I thank God to this day that I'm still here, because as I think back on all of the things that I've done just off the PCP alone, like, it's crazy that I'm still here, man. Like, it's wild, man. But like I said, back then in that time and era, that was the drug of choice. Weed wasn't really popular at all. Like marijuana now is the drug of choice. But back then it was either crack, heroin, which I never ever touched heroin. Crack I did experiment with, for a short period of time, but it wasn't my thing. Because I was selling crack, and I realized that I couldn't be around that much coke and be on it. I couldn't do that. So I quickly got that shit out of my life. But PCP, that was my drug of choice at that point in time.
Yo,
like late 80s.
What does crack feel like?
Oh, it gets you. Well, me personally, that shit would even make it even worse, because we used to take the crack and mix it with the PCP, as in we used to call it lacing a joint. We would take, and see, the thing about it. Okay, all right, let me tell you. This is how it really went. A friend of mine named Peanut, I don't know how the freak he found out about this guy, but it was this white guy in West Virginia who had a fucking farm back in, I would say, 89, 90, because my daughter was born 91. Okay, so you had 89, 90. That he linked up with this white guy out in West Virginia who had a fucking weed farm. When I say weed farm, I mean as far as your eyes could see, from your north, your south, your east, or your west, all you saw was weed. Okay, so they kept coming back with what they would do was they would go and rent a U-Haul truck. But the night before, they would go out there, and in the morning time, while we out there on the block, we would see them motherfuckers come back with literally a fucking U-Haul truck full of weed. So, like, this my right-hand man, Peanut. So I'm like, hold up. He got me running this part of the operation, but I'm trying to get down with this, because what they would do was they would take the weed that was coming back from West Virginia and sell it to all of the PCP, the people who had like gallons of the PCP, because they would use it to mix the pure liquid form of PCP with the marijuana, which was angel, like they called it angel dust and all that type of shit back in the days. But we would literally take the weed and mix it with the juice, and that would be called a wet down. We would take a 1/4 pound of weed and take a 1 ounce, where they used to put in a vanilla bottle, the little vanilla abstract bottle. That was a 1 ounce bottle, and we would take the whole bottle of PCP and take a quarter pound of that weed and wet and sprinkle it in there, drop the whole thing in the bag, shake it up, throw it in the freezer and let it sit for a while. And the blacker and the darker it turned would determine how potent the PCP was. And now if it was jet black, like this some type of shit that will have you like taking off your clothes, like really doing all types of crazy type shit. And that's the thing, that's what we wanted to do. So what we found out was that if you took potent marijuana and mixed it with the PCP, it wouldn't give you that effect. But if you had more or less like dirt weed, like really weak weed, and you mixed it with the PCP, that shit was the best shit in the world.
So you got to pay extra for it, right?
Everybody was trying to get was the black PCP, and we had it. And not only did we have it, but it's this place right up the street from where I live at now, where they don't do that no more or whatever. But it's, oh my God, it's like right next door to oh my goodness, it's not too far from. I can't think of the name of it, but they used to have this PCP called Golden Seal, where they literally had golden aluminum foil, and they would put the PCP in the golden aluminum foil, and you would know that was like the top of the top. And the reason why I say that is because if nobody blacked out or died or shot or went on a shooting spree or did some shit that didn't get on the news, it was not considered good PCP. Likening to as a heroin addict, as if they hear somebody overdosed off the heroin in a specific area, they would gravitate towards that area to try to get that particular heroin because they know it was so potent as to where they could almost die from it, put it like that. So that's the highest potency of, you know, that drug that you can get, like you really trying to fucking die. So you know, that's what they. What? Nah. But yeah, that's like the highest potency of the shit that you could get. So that's what they would strive to get. And I remember one time, man, when I was much, like probably like 16, 17 years old, and speaking of PCP, where it had gotten so bad as to one of the top, I'm talking about one of the biggest drug dealers in our neighborhood. I'm not gonna mention his name, but he I don't know what made him, he literally had started drinking this shit, right? And to get high. He literally has started drinking the PCP. I don't know how much. He might have took a sip. I don't know if he drunk, whatever the fuck he would take. But he literally would start drinking this shit to get high. And one day we came home from school, and it was fucking police all over the whole neighborhood. Like the president was something like really big happened. So come to find out, he had bought one of them like really old Chevy trucks, beautiful, laid out, red on red, interior, chrome, everything, like one of the beautiful trucks. And when we were getting off the bus, he had drunk the shit while he was sitting in his truck. I don't know if he meant to OD off the shit, but he had literally drunk the shit. And he was sitting there. Wow, man, I just thought about that shit. He was sitting in his fucking truck dead when we got off the bus. And you could smell, like when he drunk it, I think he might have dropped. He had it in like one of those glass Coca-Cola bottles. And when he drunk it, I think he might have dropped it on the ground. And you could smell the fucking PCP through the whole neighborhood. Like you could just smell it, right? Like, he was laying in his truck dead when we got off the bus, like that type of shit. Like, and like just speaking of like dead, like back then, slow it down.
Andrew, stop.
Excuse me. No, but I'm saying, like, you got the headphones on, man. I'm trying to, like, get this, like, really, can you help me out a little bit?
Andrew, stop.
No.
But anyway, like I said, man, like, those are just some of the traumatizing things, like, hey, give me a second. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm back. So, you know, like I remember when I was probably like, I would say like 12 or 13 years old on Florida Avenue, literally like freaking maybe 3 blocks down the street from where I am now. I was riding with a family member, and we pulled up beside this guy, and he had like a beautiful, like older car, and it had a convertible top on it, and the top was put down. It was like in the summertime, and somebody ran up on him while we were sitting at the light and blew his fucking head off.
You stop.
Literally blew. His body was sitting up, and somebody ran up to his car while we sitting right next to him and blew his fucking head completely off his shoulders. His body was still sitting up, and then his body just slumped over to the side. Like, so, like, I know for a fact right now, like, I suffer from PTSD because, like, if a car backfires, some shit like that, like, I'm always on alert. Like, that type of shit really fuck with me, and I don't really do no drugs or no shit. It ain't like a paranoid or nothing, but it's just like, and I know that, and that's something that, you know, like, maybe I know I need to be treated for, man. Like, I've seen that much shit, and not like, even before the age of 18, I've seen enough shit as to where I know it kind of like fucked me up. But even and then after that, once I moved to the DC, because this was in Landover, Maryland, mind, before I turned 18, because I went on a run when I was like 20. I went on a run. I got caught up in some shit, and the fucking every type of agency, police department in Landover, Maryland came to my mother's house looking for me. Every ATF, DEA, FBI, sheriff's office, every fucking agency you can name came looking for me. And I went on a run. And the crazy part about it is my sister and my mother was like, look, 'cause I was facing 125 motherfucking years. I was facing 125 years. And if I would have turned myself in at that particular time, I would have been fucked over because I wouldn't have had no bond, and I would have just been laying in jail until my court date came. So what I did was my mother, God rest her soul, and my sister looked up on a computer some shit and found this shelter in D.C. called Mitch Snyder's shelter. He was an activist for the homeless. He had a big, huge, he's still down there, 2nd and D, Northwest. 2nd and D, the Mitch Snyder shelter, look the shit up. He had a shelter, he still got the shelter down there, 2nd and D, Northwest, right by the court building. And they were like, well, look, you're going to have to, if you're going to go on a run, you're going to have to go to a shelter because it's nowhere else you can really go. And, you know, the police going to find your ass, they're going to lock your ass up. So I'm like, all right, fuck it, whatever. So when we go to 2nd and D, it's Thursday to do intake. So it was like maybe a Tuesday or Monday or some shit. So it was like a couple of days before intake, but they had these temporary trailers right here where the convention center is on 7th Street right now. They had temporary, like maybe 20 temporary shelters where you could come spend the night. They were called hypothermia shelters. And they were like trailers. You come spend the night, but in the morning you got to get your ass up and leave. So I got in the line. They dropped me off at the shelter first. But once we found out that it was a waiting list, so you got to come back Thursday, they took me like a couple of blocks up the street to the trailers. And I stayed there, and I started fucking with this group of serious motherfucking criminals. Thieves, I would more or less I'm talking about these motherfuckers were professional thieves. And that's when Garfinkel's was downtown. That's when Woodward and Lothrop was downtown. That's when Hat Company was downtown. That's when I'm talking about all high. I'm talking when I say downtown, I mean the 11th and F Street. Like anybody that know about downtown back in the day know what the fuck I'm talking about. Those were all high-end stores. So what we would do was we'd dress up because being a so at that time I was really like basically homeless. So we would go to the churches and get suits. We would get ties. We would get nice dress shirts, nice dress shoes, briefcases. We would go into them high-end stores. And let's say you walk up to a carousel that has like $500 ties on it. $500, $100 ties on it. And we would walk, like I said, we would walk into the store. One of us would distract whoever was in that area, the salesperson in that area, like they were trying to buy something. And when I say we would take every last $100 tie off of that rack, every last one. So you figure, you take $500, $100 ties. That's like what, $5,000. So you go out to the neighborhood, you find you either a tailor shop or haberdashery, so to speak, in a black neighborhood that would know about the silk ties and know about how much quality and know what you're dealing with, so you wouldn't even have to really haggle too much about the price. If you got freaking 500 ties at $20 a piece, you know what I'm saying, and it's 3 of y'all, that's a good little hit. You know what I'm saying? And you do that 2 or 3 times a day, it got to a point where we would literally, yeah, he is, but don't worry. But yeah, don't worry about it. But we would literally got to a point where instead of standing in shelters, we were making enough money where we were staying in high-end hotels for fucking months and months and months at a time. Okay, so they had. If you ever been downtown, you see the huge freaking trailers that sell T-shirts, they sell souvenirs. Some of them sell hot dogs, and I'm not talking about the small hot dog carts. I'm talking about the big trailer type thing. Okay, so we found out where they kept them at. It's one spot in Northeast DC where they keep where all the Chinese people used to go and take and park the trailers at night. They would come from wherever they lived at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and come and set up shop, and then they would go and get coffee or go and get breakfast. But once they would just park the trailers and leave for an hour or 2 and then come back. So at first what we did was we bought some bolt cutters, and when they would leave, we would pop the fucking trailers open and get 600, 700, 800 T-shirts, put them in plastic bags, throw them in a freaking a grocery cart, walk down the street like we homeless, like, you know, nothing's going on. We got 500 or 600 T-shirts in the cart, just walking down the street like we homeless. Police riding past, they don't pay nothing, no mind. But we came up with a plan as to where instead of just doing this shit nickel and dime and keep doing this shit every day, we need to wait until the last the last trailer is parked at the spot, and just get a vehicle and load. I'm talking like get as many T-shirts as we can. Okay, so what we did was, one of my friends named Hitler. His name was Hitler because he had a little mustache just like Hitler, so we called him Hitler. So he was he knew how to break, he knew how to steal cars and all that type of shit. So he stole a van. We met up at the spot where they kept all the trailers at, and we had to hop No, matter of fact, we cut a hole in the fence with the bolt cutters. Cut a huge hole so everybody could get through it. But when we got to the pit, it was like a pit at the bottom where all the trucks were. It was no way we could get the bags through the hole. So at that time, I was probably like 215. I was big, a little bit big and shit. So I was the one who had to take every last fucking bag and throw it like over a 12 foot high fence. Like that was my job. I was at the top of the chain throwing the bags over. So I would say we got probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours in. We had probably like 1,500 to 2,000 t-shirts, hats. We had every type of souvenir that you could imagine out of those trucks. Okay, so I was smart enough. Well, me and my man Keith, we were smart enough. We rented a hotel literally 2 blocks from the spot, so we didn't have a far distance to go to store the shit if we had to store it. So what we did was we got one load. I'm talking about the van was full, compact, all the way full to the front of the van. We had shit all in the front. So once we got back to the hotel room, we unloaded everything. It took probably like good almost an hour to unload all that shit. So my man man, come on, we got to go back and make another run. So when we go on back to the fucking spot, man, it's freaking police all when I say dogs, they have police all over the place. So we're in the van, not one stitch of anything was left in the van. So we were to the police oh shit. So they flashed, as we riding past, they flashed the flashlight in the back of the van. They see it's completely empty. So they didn't even really fuck with us. They let us go. But that's just one of the capers, man. Like downtown DC, I have been on some fucking 007 type capers, man. I remember one time, it's this place called Tower Records, all the way downtown, maybe on 21st Street, somewhere in that area, close to the Georgetown area. It's this place called Tower Records. It was a place called Tower Records, but it's a mall. But that's the biggest symbol sign that they have out there called Tower Records. So my man Keith, he was the fucking, if you got to do anything higher or anything like in terms of heights or balancing or some shit like that, he was the man to do that shit. So we going into the spot, Tower Records, and it was like a mall, like I said, and they had these alpaca sweaters. Believe it or not, they were like going for $250 to $400. Alpaca sweater, the animal sweater. So we like, hold up, like, is there any way that we can get these motherfuckers? Because they had a makeshift kiosk. They had a makeshift kiosk setup, but it had gates going all the way around the kiosk, and it had a little opening in the door where you come in to purchase sweaters or whatever. But when they closed, the only thing would be locked is the door. So if you were able to scale behind the gate and walk along the fucking rail, this is what he had to do. He had to walk along the rail to jump over the gate to get into the kiosk after it was locked up. Of course, I'm not doing this shit at all. I'm scared of heights now. I'm not doing it. So he had a whole bag. He had a whole box of glad trash bags. I'm all the way down, maybe 2 floors below him, because the only way we could do this shit, he had to load the trash bag up and drop it 2 or 3 floors down to me, and I had to run it out. I was right close to the door, run him out, and afterwards we would load him up in the shopping cart and get away like that. So we got I would say 8 bags. We only had 2 fucking shopping carts. So we got 8 huge trash bags of alpaca sweaters. And at that time, we had a network, I would say, of people in Chinatown, all through DC, that will purchase anything we got. We used to take fucking huge suitcases into CVS and get 1,000 deodorants. Every different man, woman, we would go in a CVS with a suitcase and get 1,000 toothbrushes and go to one of these stores up here uptown and sell $1 a piece and get $1,000 for one fucking day's work. This is every day we did this shit. When I got older, now in my more violent activities and drug dealing and all that shit was like in my earlier years. But as I got older, I realized that I can't keep doing this shit for the rest of my life, because if they catch you one more time on this type of shit, your ass is gone. So I kind of like found a different hustle in a sense where I could make as almost like just about as much money, but without taking as much risk. You know what I'm saying? Because once I had my kids, like I knew I couldn't get locked up. I couldn't get locked. That's not even an option. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, man, CVS. It wasn't even called CVS back then. It was called People's Drug Store, my nigga. People's Drug Store. They had Rite Aid, and they had a place called Phantom, which was a drugstore. And we would go in there and get 1,000 toothbrushes. We learned how to pick the fucking lock in the cologne cases and would empty that motherfucker. Like, you see how people go in the stores now and do like the flash mob shit where they just run in there and just bag up shit in front of everybody. We didn't do shit like that. We sat there from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock to watch the first employee go in the store. It's only 1 or 2 females in the store. He go to the front, fuck around, fumble around for a couple of minutes while I'm in the back, then jumped over the counter with 2 trash bags, and I done took every last cigarette that y'all got in the store and walk out the back door, and nobody even know I've been in the store type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we pulled some chaos, and I was never like what I would call a petty thief. Like, if I'm gonna go in the store and steal some shit, I'm gonna take everything off the shelf. You know, and I'm not proud of that. No, you know what I'm saying? Because it's nothing to brag about. But if you want to hear the brutal fucking truth, like, that's what it was. Like, I mean, it done been times on the flip side where when I was homeless, I literally, me and the same guy who used to rob stores with, would have to sleep on the fucking Capitol grounds under. They had huge trees with like a whole fucking apartment under it. And we would have to take 5 or 6 sleeping bags and, you know, sleep outside for a couple of days. So it's a flip side to that shit, man. Like, I done been there. I done been homeless. I done slept outside. I done been like literally homeless type shit, you know. So, I mean, I made a good amount, a whole lot of fucking money. But when it balances out, I look at it as like, I take the knowledge that I'm able to pass down to my son, you know, in terms of like none of the negative shit. Don't get it twisted. Like, my son, he ain't never been in the back of he been in the back of a police car one time. You know what I'm saying? Like, he not me at all. He not me at all under no circumstances. And I try to make sure that keep going. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did what I did so he wouldn't have to do shit, period. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, man, like, I mean, any